Just give Mark a chance to get back there.
Okay.
I don't know how many of you have ever heard about this book, The Man Who Talked to Flowers. Has any of you ever heard of that book? Well, you know, I know Michael Beckwith has people read that book when they begin coming to his church. And it's about a man that was born in 1864 and died in 1943. But he was a famous inventor, and he was an educator, and he was a scientist, and all these things. And what he did was find like 100 different products that peanuts could do. Like, let me just tell you some of them: cosmetics, dyes, plastics, gasoline, and nitroglycerin. And so he had all of these products, hundreds of products that peanuts could do. And when they asked him, they went to him and they said, "How do you know what these peanuts can do?" He says, "I asked the plants. And the plants reveal their secrets to me." And then I was reading recently about this herbalist, and he does the same thing. He says that he has plants and herbs that can heal almost any disease. And he said, "Well, how do you find out about this?" And he said, "Well, I observe the plants, and I begin to commune with the plants. And the plants tell me what they're here for and what kind of healing they're here to do." So how do these people connect with the plants? Could what's happening in meditation, and that's what I'm going to talk about, be a key for us to really begin connecting in a deeper way? You know, we're in a time like never before on planet Earth. I mean, I don't know about you, but things in your life are like escalating so exponentially. Everything is changing. You know, I would say what I believe today, probably 2 weeks from now, is not going to be my belief system at all. Because, you know, we're reading, and you can get on the web and put anything in your computer and get all of the information you want. But when we meditate, when we go within ourselves, when we really still our mind, a wave collapses and the light enters into our pineal gland and activates it. And we've been talking about this. Talked about it last week, but you see that caduceus up here, which I'm going to point to later. That goes back 36,000 years to Hermes. And it's really the sign of life. It's what you're here and what it's all about, what's happening within your body. And I'm going to go into it a little bit more. But so all of this has to do with our DNA. That has to do with our DNA. And what the caduceus is all about that. There's a very interesting book, and let me see if anybody has read this. It's called The Cosmic Serpent, The DNA, The Origin of All Knowledge. Has anybody ever read that? Well, there was an anthropologist, and his name from Stanford University, named Jeremiah Narby, who journey took him on an incredible destination. And I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm not advocating what we're talking about, but we all know that these things are happening. But anyway, in 1989, Dr. Narby went down to the Amazon jungle. And to investigate these shamans and medicine men that were healing incurable diseases. I mean, they were diseases that the medical, our highly Western medical professions couldn't heal. So they sent him down there to see what is it these shamans and these medicine men are doing to heal these diseases. And what they were doing was with plant medicine. And they were doing it, and so he wanted to find out, how do you know? How do you know what to combine? How do you know which plants cure which diseases? And again, guess what they told him? They said, the shamans said they learned about the properties of the plants and how they could be used through drinking a hallucinogenic brew plant called ayahuasca. Ayahuasca. And so what happens with this ayahuasca, I guess, is that you transcend the mind and the plants begin to speak to them. And I'm going to talk about that. But we have something in our bodies that produces the same thing as ayahuasca. And I feel like that's where we're going. That's what Hermes was talking about, Todd was talking about. All of these people were really pointing us to. So now Dr. Narby was questioning, was this information coming from the brain? Now listen, was it coming from the brain to them? Or was it coming from the plants to the brain of the man? How was it coming? You know, the hallucinatory actually was a message coming from those plants. So before I answer, let me share something a discovery that NASA made. It was an article called The Green Party, and it says, just as in human cells, the photon system protein are all the same inside a plant. The cells are transmuted from amino acids, and these amino acids have 20-letter alphabets. So what I'm saying, I'm going to break it down for you. The amino acids in these plants can be encrypted, encoded with messages. It's an alphabet, just like within the human being. So those amino acids are translated from the complex array of acids into DNA codes as letters, and their molecular codes reads like an encrypted message. These plants, remember we had the people from Dom and Her here? And what they did was they hooked up this little machine to the plants. And we began to hear the music of the plants, because these plants have a vibration. And they put every one of the vibrations of the plant, they put a musical note to. So one time somebody would get up to them and the plants would almost start to cry. You could just hear, ah. Or when we were doing something really spiritual, you know, the plants were so happy. And one of the things Trigilla was telling us is that somebody that took care of the plants, they hooked up every one of the vibrations to a letter. And this one lady used to water the plants, and her name was, I can't remember, I'm going to say Doris. So when the plants got thirsty, all of a sudden they would go, Doris. The vibration would come from the plant. So, you know, we think these things don't have a consciousness. But there's an underlying substance of all creation. And everything, even a rock has a consciousness. It's just a very slow, you know, vibration. So we're learning these things. And why we're learning these things is to learn about ourselves. Because when we learn about ourselves, you know, all the mystery schools said, know thyself. And they would have a cadaver in the mystery schools hanging up where they would preach all of this information just through our bodies. Because our bodies are made in that very image. I was just reading, I'm going to get this wrong, and let's see if I can bring it to mind. But the something of the universe, I think the wavelength of the universe is 2.74, something like that, centimeters. And between the pupils of your eyes is 2.7 centimeters. Between the tip of your nose and your chin is 2.7 centimeters. Between your chakra is 2.7 centimeters. So if you don't think that you are made in the image of the universe, which is the all that is, you know, we call God, which is just a word that means good. What we really should be calling it is the all that is. You are that. You are made in that image. You know, when we begin to look at the universe, it's so, you know, phenomenal. So this molecular code reads like an encrypted message in these plants. And this is a quote from Dr. Narby. The spirit one sees in hallucinations are made up of their own language, like the DNA is linked to the cosmic serpent from around the world. So I said, look at this caduceus. 36,000 years old they're talking about. Koth is talking about this. Hermes is talking about this. All about the DNA. All about that kundalini energy rising up the spine to give you wings that you're no longer earthbound, just like the butterfly. You know, the butterfly's in that cosmic soup, and all these imaginal cells start to come together in that cosmic soup, and then all of a sudden that butterfly comes out free, and its whole DNA is changed. It takes a quantum leap. It's not just a caterpillar with wings. It is a new creation. And you know, the Bible says you can't put old wine in new wineskins. We are transforming from the inside out. Something so phenomenal is happening with us. So look, how did they know that 1,000 years ago? About the pineal gland, about the DNA rising up, all of that through the spine, activating the pineal gland that would activate us. How do they know that? And I showed you in your very brain is that single eye of Horus. In your very brain are the two archangels over the Ark of the Covenant. You are created. The message is you. You carry the message. The message is all about all of us. So we see right here that cosmic safe that receives the messages. When the light from the cosmos enters our atmosphere because of gravity, what did we say? I said this a few weeks ago. Because of gravity, when these cosmic rays come into the atmosphere, they come at an angle of light. Guess what they call them in the Bible? Angels of light. So these angles, guess what science calls them? Messengers. They call them messengers. Messenger particles. And now NASA is telling us that the light touches the chlorophyll in plants and the heme, which is in us, which is the non-protein part of our hemoglobin in humans, and it carries a message when it comes from the cosmic DNA. So NASA says it sets off a complex activity from amino acids into the DNA, and it sends an intelligent, encrypted message to all living things. Are you getting the message? That's what I want to ask you today. Are you in that spot where you're hearing what is coming in from the cosmos? Because unless we connect, we're not getting those messages. But when we understand that these messages are coming into all living things, and we begin to learn how to connect, it changes everything in our lives. And do we take the time for that? You know, I always go back to that scripture. Yeshua said, Seek first one thing. Not a good time, not to take vitamins, not to, whatever it is we're doing. It's seek first something that's within you, that kingdom. Because when you find that kingdom that was within you, everything else is going to be added to you. Eternal life, immortality, good health, good relationships, everything else is going to be given to you. So we're beginning to see that these encrypted messages are coming to all of us. So the message comes to plants and humans and all living things. So these angels of light from the cosmos, and this is what Dr. Narby says, the spirit one sees in hallucinations or visions are made up of their own language or their own DNA. How many of us see those? I know many people in this room that are readers, or I know Larry has said many times that he sees spirits. And many of us either feel them or see them. So, but they had their own language. And the DNA is linked to the symbols of that cosmic snake all over the world. When you look in every ancient text, every ancient culture, that cosmic snake is there. Why? Because it's in their way. They were giving us an encoded message for today, telling us that we can raise change our DNA. We can turn on those ones that aren't encoded and really change our life. So I laid the foundation for all this to say this. The DNA of plants was communicating with the DNA in the brain of man, of these shamans. They were communicating. And that's what this doctor found out. They were talking. The plants were telling this doctor what they could do, what they were here for, and they were communicating into the brain of these shamans, and these, just like they did to Mr. Carver that had the peanuts, I'm sure. And then the shamans in the Amazon insist that the botanical knowledge of healing comes from the plant-induced hallucinations. So how could shamans with no communication from the outside, these guys were way in the Amazon forest, way in the Amazon forest, how could they know about the molecular properties of plant and how to combine them for healing? They came to a halt. This doctor came to a halt with that. There was no answers. If the plants weren't talking to them, how could they do these things? So he said, you know what, I've got to find out what's going on. So Dr. Narby saw these amazing healings happening when he was down there. Like this guy, he said this guy came and he was bitten by a real poisonous snake. And immediately they gave him this concoction of herbs and he just snapped right out of it. So it was beyond denying. Something was going on in the Amazon. Something was going on that these guys were tapping into. So these plants they've been taking these plants for centuries down there, this ayahuasca. But here's the incredible thing Dr. Narby finds. In order for it to work, and this is incredible, you have to combine two different plants. The hallucinatory plant won't work if you just drink that, because there's an enzyme in your stomach that stops the reaction of the hallucinatory ayahuasca. So they had to put another plant with it that got rid of specifically the enzyme of your stomach so that the hallucinatory drug would react and they would have these hallucinations. He said, how did you know? Of the billions of plants in the Amazon, how did you know these are the two plants that had to be boiled together for you to have that reaction? The plants told us, once again, which ones to combine for us to have these, this reaction. So, let me just see where I'm here. To get the effects they wanted. They do this in a very sacred way down there, too. This is not something that, like kids taking acid or something like this. They're doing this to raise their consciousness. They're doing this to bypass the mind. And we're seeing when they do bypass the mind and they do hook into these plants, that DNA of the plants is giving these encrypted messages that come into their brain, and they have the way to decode these messages. And to prove this, the pharmaceutical companies are all rushing down there to find out what these tribes are doing, because they want to know. And here they're probably the greatest minds on the planet, scientific minds, that work for the pharmaceutical companies, but they can't connect. They're using just this instead of connecting to the DNA and getting that encrypted message. So here's another quote from Dr. Narby. It's as if they knew the molecular properties of the plants and the art of combining them. And when one asks them how they know these things, they say their knowledge comes directly from the hallucinogenic plants. In other words, a message is conveyed to them from the green plants. A literal message, a literal way to combine these plants for healing. I mean, we've got to start considering some of these things. That there is, and I'm going to say that there is something in us that is can take us into that state when we really elevate and go into deep meditation. But we've got to start seeing that here these ancient people had no connection to science, no connection to the molecular structure of plants, no connection to how to combine all this stuff. And they're doing miracles down in the Amazon. And here we're still, trying to do just the little things to get healed. And we're giving people drugs that not only don't heal, but give you 15 other things. How many of you seen the commercial and they say, they're all into the posies and walking through the garden and they say, this drug is going to be great. Your liver may crash, your kidney, you may die, but it's going to be great. But anyway, we're going to have a great time when you take it. So anyway, so a little message from the plant goes inside the brain and it communicates somehow in a coded way within the brain, and the brain decodes the message. So here's Dr. Narby's conclusion. Their knowledge was undeniable, but their explanation concerning the origin of this knowledge was unbelievable for me. My attitude was ambivalent, but one hand I wanted to understand what they thought. For instance, the reality of spirits, which they saw, which they were seeing, the reality of spirits. But on the other hand, I couldn't take seriously what they said. I just didn't believe them. So he took this information back to all his scientific colleagues. And they just embraced it when he came back. They did. They just said, oh, we believe it? Come on. That's not what happened. No. They said, are you crazy? They said, are you telling us that these Indians claim that they get molecular verification from a hallucinating drug and that they can talk to these plants? Are you crazy? Is that what you're coming back and giving us this information from your investigation? Cuckoo. They didn't believe him. They didn't go with him at all. He said, we can't take this literally. So what he said was, in the West, no one, especially scientists, believe plants can communicate with humans. How many of you know scientists that are out there communicating with plants? Or are they using right up here equations and all of these things to do what they do? So only humans use, and they believe also that only humans use symbols like words and pictures. Plants don't relay information by mental images. But the thing was, he'd been down there and he saw it work. He saw people healed. And there was no other explanation how these guys got that information, how to combine these plants. So obviously they were, tapping into some higher dimension, a higher consciousness. So the problem was their knowledge was proven to him. He had seen it. And the pharmaceutical industry was now racing down there just to for them to tell them what plants to combine and all of that. So Dr. Narby, inside of himself, he said, I've got to solve this mystery. I've got to find out for myself whether this is really true or not. Because if this is really true, it will just open us up to so much. And I don't know if you remember Carl Jung, but Carl Jung said, I can't solve the mental problems of my patients unless I experience it myself. And so that's what Dr. Darby did, Narby. He went down, and I guess he took the ayahuasca, because he said, what if nature is really speaking in signs and symbols? What if nature places inside us a coded message that is the cosmic DNA communicating with our physical DNA? Could this open new information for us? What if we could connect with the DNA of the whole universe and the cosmos? If we could really connect with that and be that channel to bring in that information about so many things. What if? And what if this shows us that that's a possibility for us? The word Christ, excuse me, when I studied it many years ago, what it means, when you get to the end of that word, it means channel of divine, channel of all that is. It's not a person. It's who we are. We are all those channels of divinity, which Chris will tell you John of God does so well down in Brazil. And he said that they just work in and through him. He's found a way, Chris, to tap into what we're talking about today. John of God has found this way to tap in to that DNA of these other people that are in the cosmos, that he can be that conduit. And what we are wanting to do is that same thing. So remember, NASA reported a description of the molecular code reads like an encrypted message. What NASA was saying is that the light entering into the chloroform of the plants and into the heme of our bodies, of human, has an encoded message. You know, in the Bible it says this, it says, God, or all that is always speaking. But the question is, are we listening? Are we tuned in? It's like a radio channel. Are we tuned in? What Dr. Narby found was between nature's molecular profile within the hallucinogenic plants and the serotonin within your brain, both the serotonin in your brain and this ayahuasca, which was a hallucinatory drug, both are keys that unlock the door to secret. You've got it within us. We just haven't totally learned how to tap into that. But what if there's a way for us to tap into that serotonin in the pineal gland, where we're going to talk about, remember we said Jacob, he fought with that man, which is us. We fight within ourselves with that humanity and divinity until the breaking of day, until the light came. And then he said, I saw God face to face. What if there's a place within you that you can see God face to face? And it's all about this serotonin, and you could begin to communicate with plants. You could begin to be that channel that brings that cosmic message, that DNA that's encrypted within you, and that within you, you can decode that message and bring it to humanity. I think many of us are doing that in the work we do. I think Roger does it in his reading. If you haven't had a reading from Roger, he's phenomenal. I try to get one about every day. He gives me a little reading, but he's amazing. Probably one of the best readers I've ever experienced. But anyway, people like that are tapping into that. And we all, it says the message are coming to all living things. If they're coming to a plant, they'll come to you too. I mean, they're coming to plants, they're coming to animals, they're coming to all living things. So Dr. Narby wanted to experience it for himself, and it changed his whole scientific position. And the experience was more than just images out of a compartmentalization of his mind. He said what he experienced could not have come out of his mind. And it was probably, he was talking about the serpent. But there was a communication from the DNA of the plant connecting with the DNA within himself. And he began to have all of these experiences. So now let's connect this with what can happen in deep meditation. We've been talking about meditation. Why are we talking about meditation all the time? Because it's the most important thing you can do in your life. It's the most important thing. Connecting back to nature. Lying on the earth. Connecting. I had an experience this week where I was lying on the beach. I'm going to tell you a little bit of it. And I was putting my roots deep into the earth. And then I was putting my roots connecting to cosmos. And all of a sudden I kind of lifted out of my body. And I felt this electricity go through my body. And I know it was the Kundalini energy. Called my friend Nana and we were talking about it. We can reconnect. We're rewiring. We're reconnecting. You know, we call it, you know, the church calls it redemption. If we weren't deemed something, we couldn't reconnect to it. And what we're doing right now is reconnecting to those frequencies that are taking us to higher consciousness. Those frequencies that are taking us out of this matrix. You know, we're in this conditioned container here. But there's ways for us to get out of that. And when we consider stories like these people in the Amazon and that they're talking to plants, we consider these kind of things. It stretches what we think we can do. And that's why I bring these stories to you, because it begins to say, you know what? I can connect to that plant. I can find out what could heal me. What do you need to heal yourself? You know, that's what it's all about. What do you need to heal yourself? You could connect. What if you could connect to the cosmic DNA and you had something going on in your body and you could connect, instead of taking a drug that's going to have 52,000 side effects, you could connect and it would tell you what your body lacks or what your body needs. That's the future. That's the new earth. That's the way things are going to be. Hospitals, doctors, all of these things are going to be a thing of the past. Because we are connecting. And you know what? All healing is, outside healing is just a phase. We're going to learn to be that conduit for ourselves and bring healing into our life. So NASA says that the light entering into your consciousness touches the hemi and you receive encrypted messages that your DNA is capable of decoding. It makes me think of the scripture when the hymn I was thinking about this morning. Remember the woman in the Bible? Those of you that read the Bible, it says, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I'd be healed. When I heard that hymn within ourselves, that scripture came to my mind. She said, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, if I can just touch that cosmic DNA, is what she was saying. If I can just touch that cosmic DNA, and Jesus said he felt an energy come out of him. If I can touch that cosmic DNA, I'm going to be healed. And that's the same with us. If we can begin to connect with that cosmic DNA, and that message comes in and we decode that message, we too are going to be healed. Whole, perfect, it's in us. We just got to reconnect to it, and that's what this is all about. So Dr. Newby's conclusion was the Amazon jungle shamans had ability to talk to plants, and that the profile of the chemical of the hallucinatory plants in the same is the serotonin in the brain produced in meditation. So he said we could reproduce it here within our own bodies. People, I know many enlightened people that have taken those kind of drugs to bypass the mind, but what if we really are on the road to reproducing it right within ourselves? That if we did the things that Yeshua, Buddha, all the great avatars and masters said, go within ourselves first, seeking not something outside of ourselves, but begin to seek something inside of ourselves, really connect, spend that time in meditation, quiet the mind, be still and know. All through the Emerald Tablets, it's about silence. Words, the minute you open your mouth, you are in the brain. You are out of the spirit. The minute you open your mouth. There is no language. You know, everybody that has these near-death experiences, how do they communicate? It's right here. They just communicate through the mind. They're not talking. So both, the serotonin within you, both were keys that opened the brain to receive messages. And all of the ancient symbols of the shamanic ladders, the spiral staircases, the braided ropes, are implying the communication between heaven and earth, between the cosmos and our bodies. You know, we talked about Jacob's ladder, which I'm going to bring up again, and how he went and put his head on a rock. And he saw this ladder. It was inside of him. He was having a dream, it says. So when we're dreaming, we're inside of here. And he saw this ladder going back and forth from the earth to heaven, and angels were ascending and descending on the ladder. What do you think that is? That's your connection. That's your DNA. That's activating your DNA, so you're connecting to the cosmos. And then when he got up, he was wrestling with that man, that ego within us was trying to take us away from that experience until the breaking of day. And then he saw God face to face, and the name of the place was Peniel. That's the place. The top of that rod, that's the place. That's the furnace where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went in, and they weren't burned up, but the fourth man appeared. We birthed the Christ. That's the place, right here in our brain. We don't have to go searching for the Ark of the Covenant. We don't have to go searching all over the world for these things. You are that Ark of the Covenant. You are that temple of the living God. God said, I'll never dwell in a place made with hands, because I dwell in a temple on top of your head. And Jesus said this, I have no place to lay my head, but he laid his head on a boat. He was looking for a body, and it's you. That Christ is looking for you to know that that head has been laid on you. That temple is on you. The whole thing we're waking up to is who we are. That we are God. Jacob's ladder. The ancient people 1,000 years ago were transmitting this message to us today. That we could know the way. That we could know the ladder. And one of the things when I was having that experience on the beach, it was like I almost saw a ladder, and I was like going up a couple of rims of that ladder. Not into the cosmos, but a couple of rims of that ladder. We can all have those experiences. It just takes the time for you to be still and for you to connect with these things. And that's what I'm telling you today. Meditation is probably the most important thing you can do. You wouldn't leave your house without brushing your teeth or taking a bath. But we leave our house without connecting. We leave our house without connecting to that DNA that can change our life, change our day. So Dr. Newby, here's a quote, he said, in their visions, the shamans take their consciousness to a molecular level and gain information related to the DNA. How about you? Can you take your consciousness to a molecular level and begin to tap in to that channel of divinity, that DNA of the cosmos that has all the information, that activates it and codes it within you, and then you decode it? This was why they see the double hexes and the twisted ladder. The ancients knew the principle was the same for all living beings. And what they were describing with the two entwined serpents, and everything you see, we see it, we know that's in the medical profession has talked about that. Because another thing they say is when we tap into that, healing comes through our hands. When we tap, obviously the medical profession isn't doing it that way, but that was the original intent for that. So they're describing this entwined serpent, and it's the vine of your DNA, which could activate our single eye or pineal gland, the seat of our soul, to really connect. And this is what he said too. I needed to understand DNA could transmit information. I knew it emitted photons, which are electromagnetic waves, and I remember what Carlos Schumann had told me when he compared spirits to radio waves. He said, once you connect the pineal or to the single eye, you can pick them up anywhere. You know, right now in this room, right around us, are all kinds of beings. Right now in this room, we're on the wrong radio wave. If we change that radio wave, we would see them. You can feel them. How many of us can now sense? So many times when I study or when I begin to speak, I can sense that I'm having help. I can sense, you know, that there is spirits around me, helping me, you know, just downloading and things like that. But what if we could turn that radio dial and we could see? You know, it says in the Bible, we're encircled by a great cloud of witnesses. We're totally covered with all of those spirits. But he said, once you turn on your pineal or your single eye, you can pick them up anywhere. In meditation, you draw through the pineal gland of the brain the light receptor, the light or magnetism which enters the body and touches the heme, and you get the messages in your DNA and you begin to encode these messages. I think I do that. Because when I get these things that are coming in, I feel like I'm decoding them so that I can bring them to you. But you're getting them too. Because it's coming to all living things. It's just that some of us are tapping into it in a more intentional way. And that's what I want to stimulate for you today, to tap in an intentional way to these angels or angels of light coming down from the cosmos that are receivers. Remember, God is what? What does the Bible say God is? Come on, students. Light. It's photon energy. God is the... you know what that means in English? Good. That is so limiting and so ridiculous. The whole word God is so ridiculous because it's not what God is. God is photon energy. Unknowable. You can only be God. You can't know God. You can only be God. So when we connect to that energy, that photon energy, we begin receiving those messages and we decode them within our body. And it provides us with new knowledge, new understanding, the power to heal. I've spoken many times and something drops into me and I say it and I go, where did that come from? Because it's a connection. It's a connection and we all can have it. He also proved that people in remote areas are able to work with scientific principles they don't even understand. They don't know all of this. Those scientists have gone to school how many years? They probably got their masters, their doctorate, and gone on just to get this knowledge. But they are tapping into knowledge. They have no idea where it comes from other than from these plants. They don't even know because they make direct contact with a higher intelligence. You're here to do the same thing. We're here to tap in to that higher intelligence and to bring that DNA of the cosmos into the reality of this world. The Bible calls these messages angels of light because they come down from the cosmos, but in reality they're angels of light called photon, and they make their way into the center of those who are receptors. And the question is, are you a receptor? To be a receptor, you have to be receptive. You know, you have to make an intention to be receptive. And that's the whole thing. Do you take time to meditate? Do you take time to go lay on the grass, go to the beach, go to the park, whatever it is that helps you connect, that you can feel the heartbeat of Mother Earth. Mother Earth is transmuting these frequencies right now too. And when you connect with her, it changes everything. You can feel the heartbeat of the universe, which I love Pam's song, The Heartbeat of the Universe, because there is a heartbeat. And when you lie on that ground, wherever it is, you feel it. I can't even wear my shoes. I gotta be in the sand. I gotta sit in the sand, be in the sand. Somebody was saying to me, don't the bugs eat you? No, they really don't. I just have to feel it. Because when you feel it, you're beginning to connect with it. You know, one of the things that they said is rubber shoes are one of the worst things this man has invented because it keeps us from connecting. When we're all filled with these phones and, you know, TV and all of these electromagnetic things. What it is, when we ground, when we walk on Mother Earth with our feet, with our bare feet, it takes all of that energy out of us. And we can be recharged. You know, that stuff brings our energy down when we're always connected to that cell phone, or we're always connected to the computer. You know, lately I've kind of almost been repelled. I have to push myself to get on the computer, push myself to listen to my messages. Probably you that have called me realize that, because I don't answer all my messages. You know, I just don't like to connect to that anymore. I want to be outside. How many of you are feeling that? I want to be outside. I want to be connected to the earth. I don't want to have my phone. I don't want those things. But anyway, I get off the subject. But anyway, they make their stuff to the center. If we're receptive through openings, their single eye, they bring in messages to higher understanding and higher consciousness, and that's what we're all about. Cosmic DNA enters our body via light particles in the pineal gland. That's when people say they see auras. Many times I'm speaking, they say, I saw your aura today. You know, blah, 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 whatever it was. Well, that's because of that. Once we are receptors to that light, we begin to transmit that light out of us. So when we're taking it in and we're being that receptor, whoever comes in our field is also receiving that light, and we begin to see auras. The light emanates from that human body by our DNA. And when we meditate and receive that light via the pineal, we are seeing God face to face. We are really receiving divine DNA of all that is. God, if you could connect to all that is, wouldn't you take 5 minutes of your day to connect with all that is? I mean, really, if you knew you really could. You know, when we are dating and we're real young, we can't wait to see that person. You know, we do everything to get to that person. But this, you know what the Bible calls this? Your first love. When you really know that you can connect with all that is, God, you want to do that first thing. You know, sometimes I can't wait when I get up in the morning. Just to know that I'm going to feel that connection, because it energizes you. Somebody said to me, you look younger today. You know why? Because that. And we don't have to age. We can keep getting younger. And that's the key. They said what's secreted from the pineal gland is what is going to stop aging, and what is going to really make us younger. So what if you thought every time you connected to your pineal gland, you were going to get younger when you start connecting to your pineal